The Waffen SS are considered by many to be the fiercest and most feared soldiers of World War II. An elite troop trained to be the spearhead of German offensives, also having a strong ideological component that gives them strong motivation. For some today they were great soldiers. For others, they were villains. And there are also those who affirm that all their actions in combat were exaggerated, and that in no case did they stand out above the rest of the units of the German army. Next in this program, we are going to expose 5 little-known curiosities about the Waffen SS, which will surely surprise you. Did they have priority when it came to receiving weapons? What role did they play within the intelligence services? How did they manage their troops? Were the soldiers who entered them volunteers? What was the effect of his propaganda within the German camp itself? Well, all these questions and some more are what we are going to see today. The first of these is the deterrent power that certain Waffen SS divisions began to have, starting in the summer of 1943. This was the date on which the SS Panzer divisions began to be used in the most important actions they had to carry out the German army. So, the Allies began to realize this, and from then on, their intelligence services only had to focus on locating these few units to find out what the Germans were planning. It was clear that locating the 7 elite Waffen SS divisions was easier than tracking the other 30 Panzer divisions. This meant that as soon as a concentration of this type of divisions was detected in any sector, an alert was quickly activated and measures began to be taken. For their part, the Germans also realized that this was happening and began to use it to their advantage from the autumn of 1944. Their technique consisted of intoxicating the Allied intelligence services with reports of all kinds on the movement of SS Panzer divisions, so that they thought that they were going to attack or defend a certain sector, when the reality was that they were going to do the opposite. On the other hand, the Allied study of the strength of Waffen SS divisions such as Leibstandard, Das Reich, or Totenkampf helped them to get a very accurate idea of the military situation in which Germany found itself. For example, the Allies were looking at how long it took for a unit of these units to recover and return to service. This made them see the recovery capacity that Germany had, and if they were in a good or bad moment. The second curiosity leads us to the negative effects that the Waffen SS propaganda had among the German population itself. A characteristic of the Waffen SS is that they had more war correspondents than a regular division of the German army, and therefore, they always occupied a larger space in the newsreels than their small size really corresponded to. To give it greater importance, the newscasts always highlighted the fierce combats in which these divisions participated, and the great sacrifice they had. This generated an adverse effect among part of the population that found it unappealing to enlist for these units, because they were practically going to have an assured death. Remember that enlistment in the Waffen SS was voluntary for most of the war, and of course it had to be made attractive. Thus, little by little the news that arrived about the combat actions of the Waffen SS began to relax, and the matter of the high casualties was omitted. Next, we go with the third curiosity, this being a question that many ask themselves. Did the Waffen SS divisions have priority when it came to being equipped with respect to other units of the German army? This was precisely one of the many questions that the Americans asked Guderian during the numerous interrogations that they did in the summer of 1945. His answer was that the Waffen SS as such did not have priority to receive weapons ahead of other divisions. The units that were given priority were those that had to participate in some important offensive or defensive operation. Thus, and due to the fact that in most cases the Waffen SS divisions participated in these operations, they were given priority for their re-equipment, in the same way that other units that were also going to fight in that action received. Another important detail is that Himmler had a lot of power within the German government, and on many occasions his influence did mean that some of the iconic divisions of the Waffen SS received quite favorable treatment. The main reason why they were used in the most critical points was because as they were units that had also received political training, the German leaders had greater confidence in them. This leads us precisely to curiosity number 4, which refers to the commands that many of these divisions used to have. As the French author Jean-Luc Lelayou explains to us in his book on the Waffen SS, some commanders of these units rose more through political than military merit. This led on more than one occasion to very big mistakes being made on the battlefield, for which the SS soldiers paid dearly. Thus, this was one of the reasons why some high command of the army, such as Marshal von Manstein, openly criticized the operation of these units. The fifth curiosity about the Waffen SS leads us to the habit that these divisions had of leaving part of their troops in reserve, and therefore, not mobilizing their entire force in an operation. This was because the generals wanted to keep a base with which to rebuild their division later. Although this went against the orders of the German leader, this way of acting was repeated over and over again. The most famous examples of this are what happened at the end of the Battle of Normandy, when the German army was partially encircled at Falaise, and the entire front collapsed. Although it is often said that the entire German army in France was there, the truth is that many divisions had already begun a withdrawal long before that final disaster. This was what allowed us to save a lot of equipment, and what made it possible for the units that managed to escape from the encirclement to withdraw with a little more comfort. Another case was what happened during the Lake Balaton offensive, in which Dietrich himself was accused of not having used all his troops, as ordered. And it is that indeed on this occasion, Dietrich left part of his troops that he had available in reserve, so that his unit would not disappear. And finally we go with the last curiosity, this being the sixth of the program. This refers to a regulation that Himmler was able to apply in February 1945, so that 20% of the new recruits who, due to age, had to enter the German army, went directly to the Waffen SS. And it is that ensuring a percentage for the Waffen SS of the available quota of new recruits had been one of Himmler's main objectives since 1940, and he was finally able to achieve it just 2.5 months from the end of the war. This meant that of the 450,000 17-year-olds who became fit for combat in 1945, some 95,000 went directly to the Waffen SS. Although the essence of the Waffen SS at its beginning had been to be made up of volunteers, in this final phase it gradually lost this characteristic. Well, what do you think of the program? What was the curiosity that most caught your attention? Do you know any other very striking ones that you want to comment on? I leave you in the description the program that we did with Carlos Caballero Jurado about the Leibstandard Division, in which we analyzed many of these issues. Thank you all for being part of this community, and especially the sponsors who make this possible. Subscribe and share this program if you liked it, and we'll see each other here as always, next Thursday and Sunday. See you soon.